Welcome back to the channel. My name is Lisa Elvin Stiltori, and I'm a genealogist and a passionate traveler. Over the last several years, I have been focusing my channel's attention on les filles du roi, the king's daughters, and les filles mariées, the marriageable girls. Each of these groups of women are really the founding mothers and grandmothers of New France, of Quebec, of Canada, and ultimately of North America. Telling their stories is really illuminating and really tells us of the sacrifices that they made in order that we exist. So it has been, we're on episode 288 right now. Amazing that we've come this far. So thank you to all of you for being there for me. I really appreciate it. Subscribe, like, and notify. All that helps the channel grow. So let's get on and see and get to know our Fille du Roi of this episode. Today we're going to be doing episode 288, Marie Guillaume. That is a viewer request. I did not have her in any of my files, so it was a pleasure to get to know Marie a little bit better. Born in 1652 in Paris, France, her parents were Denis Guillaume and Anne Caron. Now, she would have been born in the parish of Saint-Médard. The church where she would have been baptized dates to the 14th century and is, as far as parish churches go, smaller than the average, but it's equally as beautiful. She is part of that 5th arrondissement that we talked about. So many. It's it is the oldest in Paris, and it was first built by the Romans. We have the Rive Gauche. It is found on the Rive Gauche, the left bank of the River Seine. It encompasses the Quartier Latin, which also is part of that educational, and all of the Sorbonne is there as well, and that is why it's called the Latin Quarter, because the language that they taught was Latin. And you can actually see the Roman influence in things like the Roman amphitheater and as well the thermal baths that they had. And it is absolutely one of the most prestigious districts. And we really want to honor the fact that so much of the history of Paris comes from that 5th arrondissement. So this is where she's coming from. And really, really, they're as Parisian as you get. All right, let's see where she goes. She would come to New France as a fille du roi aboard the ship La Nouvelle France. She would arrive on July 31st, 1670. There is no notes about her parents or whether they had passed on. There's no dowry indicated, so we just know that she was on that ship. Groom that she selected and who selected her, his name Nicolas Maheu, and he was born in 1638 in Voyage in France. His parents were Jean Maheu and Martine Fontaine. Now you can see that he's from the Île-de-France region, very close to Paris. He is found in the département de Seine-et-Marne. There are about 1,500 people that live in the commune of Voulages. The church Saint-Pierre was rebuilt in the 18th century and replaced a church that had been there since the Middle Ages. Very, very, what we would call suburbia in a sense, or the outskirts of the city. Very small, but very cozy. At least now it is. So he would arrive with the Gagne. He was part of the Maximien regiment. He would arrive September 1665, and he stayed on after his military time. He would be found in the 1667 census of Bertrand Chesney de la Garenne, and he is a worker there as well. So that is where he was at when he was waiting for his life to begin. So they would be married January 15th, 1671 at Ange-Gardien. So they would settle in this spot called Ange-Gardien, which is actually guardian angel. And it's about 14 kilometers or about 9 miles from Quebec City. The first inhabitants of this area were, ironically enough, his last name is Maheu. Haven't done the research to see if there any kind of connection. But Pierre Maheu and Jean Trudel were the first two permanent settlers in 1657. Our first Mass was celebrated here in 1664 in the house of Saint-Trudel. In so doing, the territory of Lange-Gardien was detached from Château Richer to become its own autonomous parish. By 1664, there are approximately 125 people living there. Gradually, the funds for a church were collected, and in 1675, a stone church was built. A new church was built in 1717, where the current church is located. The latter was set on fire in 1931, which will be replaced by the one we know today. Beautiful, beautiful little spot in Quebec. And so they would begin their family. Their firstborn, Geneviève, would marry Pierre Caron and would have 4 children, 3 of whom would make it to adulthood. Jean would pass away at age 4. Nicolas would pass away at the tragic age of 35. He was killed accidentally by a tree that fell upon him, and it's actually mentioned in the notes, tué par un accident d'un arbre. So in other words, killed by a falling tree. They had only been married 2.5 years, and she had the 2 children still, and she was left a widow. Second husband would be Laurent Migneron, and he was born in 1640 in Saint-Hilaire-de-Chizay. His parents were Pierre Migneron and Françoise Pénigoin. Now, I want to say thank you to Xavier, an incredible researcher in France and a great supporter of this channel. He really helped me because I could not find the church. I couldn't even find this place. And he was able to pinpoint a location. But Saint-Hilaire is the parish, which no longer exists, and Chizay is the commune. So this is kind of where I'm at with this. But it is definitely in the Nouvelle-Aquitaine region, that we know. And we also know that it is part of the Deux-Sèvres département. So that much is for sure. But the rest is very, very problematic. Thank you again to Xavier for helping me. It's incredible the information that he gave me. So Laurent would come to Quebec, and he would marry sometime in 1667 to a lady named Anne Saint-Denis, whose family had settled in New France. They would go on to have 4 children, 3 of whom would leave descendants. Anne would die at age 3. Jean would marry Marie Labelle and would have 3 children, all of whom would survive. And then he would marry Françoise Mercier, have another 3 children. 2 of those would survive. Pierre would marry Marie-Anne Charon and have 7 children, all of whom would survive. And finally, Anne would marry Gabrielle Dufour and have 3 children, all of whom would survive, before her early death, dying during an epidemic. So Marie had been a widow for almost 18 months, and Laurent had been a widow for about 6 months by the time they married on May 11, 1675. They would make their home at the origins of this town, which today has about 3,500 people, began when apparently soldiers from Breton in France arrived here and were startled by the beauty of the place and apparently exclaimed, "Oh, le Beaupré," which actually means beautiful meadow. Looking at the picture on the top, you can actually see, on the top and the bottom actually, you can actually see what they were referring to. And by the 1666 census, Quebec City and Beaupré had essentially a population, although of course Beaupré has remained a small village. And it actually became a town only in 1962. And it is home to the fabulous ski resort called Mont Sainte-Anne, one of the best. And this is the church that grew from Beaupré, the Sainte-Anne de Beaupré, to Basilica. And so this is definitely where they made their home. They would go on to have 7 children. Jean would die after the 1681 census. Françoise would marry François Robin and have 3 children, all of whom survived. Marianne would pass away at age 15. Ambroise would marry Geneviève Pépin and had 11 children, 10 of whom made it to adulthood. Geneviève's mother was Fille Marie Teste, who we have not yet profiled. Agnes would marry Pierre Pepin and would have 6 children, all of whom would make it. Pierre's mother was also Fille Marie Teste. We have Joachim, who died at age 2. And then we have Marie Madeleine, who married Joseph Berthelot and would have 2 children, one of whom would survive before her early death at 26. Now, in the 1681 census, we find Laurent and Marie and their children, Jean, Geneviève, Jean. You can see how it's a blended family. François, Marie. And they own 1 gun, 5 bêtes à cornes, or horned animals, goats, or any other kind of animal that has a horn, and 8 arpents à valeur, which is about 6 acres of land. Move to Saint Joachim, also known as Cape Tourmente. This is the very first time that one of my profiles has moved here, so it was fun to actually explore a new place. Currently, there are 1,500 people that live here. The history of Saint Joachim is totally a rich tapestry and woven from early beginnings and resilient community spirit. Samuel de Champlain established the first dwellings and barns between 1626 and 1628, while some sources suggest farming began here as early as 1610, with settlers cultivating wheat. However, the colony faced a devastating setback in 1628 when the Kirk brothers attacked, burning the fledgling settlement. In 1661, the first religious mission was founded and attracted families and gave rise to the community known as Petite Ferme, where a school was opened by priests from the Séminaire de Québec to teach agricultural practices. By 1676, a new school catered to students with disabilities and those needing additional support. The formal establishment of Saint Joachim and Cap de la Madeleine occurred in 1687, and by 1721 the parish of Saint Joachim was separated from Sainte Anne de Beaupré, named in honor of Sainte Anne's husband. The community faced further trials. This is very much past this period. And because on August 23rd, 1759, they fought between the residents and the British troops, led to the destruction of the parish church and other buildings, marking a very rare time when civilian engagements in a conflict with a priest actually leading the cause. But resilience prevailed, and in 1779, a new church was erected, symbolizing the community's enduring commitment to rebuild. Isn't that amazing? And you can see on that screen, the middle picture is the remnants of the church that was burnt. I mean, I have not been here. This has got to be on my bucket list for my next trip to Quebec. I just want to see this. This is amazing in terms of the history, and it really encompasses all of Quebec. So I was really, really kind of amazed that I didn't know more about this incredible place. We do not have a death record for either Laurent or Marie. They both would pass sometime after 1705. In 1705, Marie would have been 53 and Laurent 65. They would have been married 30 years, and they would leave us with 42 descendants as of 1729. This story really moved me because here's a woman, Marie, who literally came to New France, married a man. He dies suddenly, tragically. She remarries a widower, adopts his children, takes care of them as well, and is able to carry on. And not only that, she was a pioneer at Ange-Gardien very early on, and then became a pioneer at Saint Joachim. This takes a very special lady. She wasn't afraid of risk, and she wasn't afraid to take chances and survive, and she was a survivor. That's the number one thing. So I think if this is your ancestor, I think you've got a special gift of survival instinct, if you will. I really think she was quite astonishing. So we thank Marie for her courage and her determination, and most of all, we bless her memory. and we appreciate the contribution that she made to the tapestry that is Quebec and all of North America, really. Thank you so much, Marie. And with that, I also want to say thank you to my patrons, supporters, and subscribers. You are all so extraordinarily special to me. Thank you so much. And with that, I will leave you until we get to the next episode of Les Filles du Roi. Until then, au revoir.